Oh, can you hear me now?
I think people are angry about like the looting and the burning of buildings, but a lot of that isn't really the protesters. It's just like random people who are doing it.
It's also, Trevor Noah had a really great video about it. It's basically these people have never been protected from the social contract, which is fairness in the judicial system, equal wages. So why would they, what's their reason to basically participate in the social contract of not stealing, not following the rules? You know what I mean? It's this, the contract has worked against them, so they're not really participating 100%. They have no, horse in the race, essentially.
Oh yeah, no, I understand the protests, but do you think from like a high level, like you think of two persecuted groups, it's black people and Jewish people, right? Like throughout the past 80 years, I feel like you have Jewish people who have said, hey, there's this system. For us to succeed, we have to like work within the system and be the best within the system. And then they've taken over, gotten powerful within finance, politics, entertainment, where African American people haven't. They've kind of said, this system's ridiculous. We're not going to work within it. But then it's backfired because then you realize, this system's not going anywhere. Either you succeed within it, or if you go against it, it's not going to bode well for you.
Which I disagree.
I'm saying it's the system's wrong anyway. But do you think like there's two ways to like you have the Jewish people who have kind of like used it to their advantage, but then you have African American people who have gone against it. But then again,
I think it's easier. I think it's easier to go under the radar if you're Jewish, because it's not as blatant. And I think inherently, American society was built on the inequality between black and white people, and so there has to be a different level of acknowledgement of the inherent unfairness and how the equality that people say is there is actually not.
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, whether you peacefully protest, you get criticized, and then if you protest aggressively, you get criticized. It's kind of like a lose-lose.
Yeah, and there's no right way to protest, because protesting is inherently going against society and culture. There's no good way to protest.
Yeah, sadly, it seems like even though the protesting is like, for a good cause, I feel like it divides even more. Like, you're going to have a lot of white people say, like, this is why they can't integrate. Like, look what they do. They destroy our buildings. They destroy, like, they're disruptive.
And that's fine, because those people need to shape up or ship out, because this is a long time coming. This was inevitable. This was going to happen next week, a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. This was going to happen.
But then I feel like this has already happened. This happened during the Baltimore riots, like not too long ago. Like, I feel like...
Not at this level. For people to go out and protest during COVID, that inspires, this is like the 1960s.
Yeah. No, I mean, you hope something positive comes from it, but if anything, maybe I'm wrong, but I almost feel like this like ignites Trump's base even more. As like, see, like, look, like, I don't know.
I don't know.
For whatever reason, I feel like this ignites his base even more than ever. But I mean, I feel like there's definitely warrant to the protests, and I feel like, it's for a good cause, but I don't know. I feel like it'll end up helping his case.
I don't think so, because I have a good mixture of people on Instagram, and shockingly, nearly every person, even people that I thought, oh my God, these people are not going to be everyone has posted something about solidarity and just really been vocal about it. And it's been really cool to see.
Mhm.
Because I think when you watch a murder, I mean, that's what that was, a murder. It's next level.
But this has already happened tenfold. I feel like there's been videos of these white cops killing black people
Not like
for how many times? I don't know. I feel like, you know, you hope something positive comes from it, but I don't know. I don't know this one thing. I don't think this is going to be, I think it's going to take, I think, you know, more of this is going to, I don't know.
Oh, I think it's the beginning, but I think that this has made a lot of people that have never considered race, if you're white, like it's just not a thing. I think it's made so many people think, wow, this is happening and this isn't cool and this is, you know, it's time to stop. And it shouldn't have taken this long, and it's sad that it has, but I think the tide is turning.
I don't know if it's changed. I feel like the same people who were for it and thought, like, you know, this change is a long time coming, this is ridiculous. I feel like they've been for it for years, and they're still for it. But I feel like the people who are against it, this hasn't changed their. I don't know. I guess you're saying it's going to be changed for people who are in between. But I feel like, how could you be in between at this stage?
I don't think it's in between. I think it's there's a luxury to being able to close your eyes, to not have to handle the reality. If you have no, you know, involvement in what's going on, if you're white, you live in a white neighborhood, like, okay, you can see something sad in the news and go, wow. But to watch a murder in your living room and then to see buildings being on fire and the White House as a backdrop of protesting, and to see people of all colors, races, creeds protesting, I don't know. It's a different kind of rhetoric too, the way people are talking about racism. Like I said, like when I see Instagram stories and stuff, people that I know 100% would have, it's not even like on their radar, and now they're like, oh wow, things are unfair and there's a problem. It's like a light bulb went off. It wasn't conscious racism, but it was just like an aha moment.
I guess if this is what it took for someone to feel that, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like their viewpoint's not going to change. Like at least the way they vote isn't going to change that drastically. Like, if this is what it took for you to finally see inequality was there, maybe you're a Democrat that is like, okay, wow, I see it now, but you're still going to vote Democrat. But I feel like, I don't know if many Republicans are going to see this and think, oh, wow, this is crazy, I'm going to vote Democrat. Like, I feel like from a voting standpoint, I guess I don't see how it changes votes.
I know polls have proven to be incorrect, but they said that Biden has at this point, with a few polls, the biggest lead disparity since the beginning of polls being created, essentially. After, you know, tonight after all of this.
I mean, that'd be a positive.
I don't know. It's this. I'm usually optimistic, but with a lot of realism. But something about this has really made me think. I think people care more, and this has enraged me. I can't explain how just sad. It just really bothered me. It's obviously it should bother me because it's someone being murdered, but I can't even look at that picture. Like, I can't even. It makes my stomach hurt. Like, when it happened, like when I saw the picture, like I felt physically ill. And I'm not sensitive really, and I'm not warm and fuzzy, and I'm not, you know, any of those things. So I don't know. It just really, it made me realize I care a lot about this, and I want to be a bigger voice and actually make a difference in some way in my life, throughout my life, with civil rights and human rights.
I guess I'm shocked that, like, I feel like this is a repeat of, like, when that guy in New York was killed when he was saying, "I can't breathe." This seems like it's exactly the same thing. The guy was pinned down until he couldn't breathe and died. And this is like the same thing. And that happened years ago.
I think
It
it's
seems like,
circumstances.
and I think people are, with
It's
COVID,
it's marginalized people that have been working and putting themselves on the front lines for next to no pay. And now this happens, and so it's just like, this is the perfect storm. Where it's like, okay, what else do I have to live for? I mean, my life is terrible anyway. I lost my job where I have no money. I'm working a job putting myself on the line every day. So, okay, worst thing I do, I get protested, I get arrested, or I get sick. I mean, but my life is already terrible anyway. It's the final straw.
I guess you have just to think, hopefully they use this and turn out to vote.
I hope so.
Because if this energy is used and then they don't vote, then it's like for nothing. So I guess you just hope, like, I feel like last time all this happened, and then for whatever reason, there's such a large portion of these people that just did not vote. And that led to what's happened. So you hope this leads to all these people who think that way voting, not how it happened last time when they had these opinions, all these protests happened, but for whatever reason, they just didn't turn out to the polls.
Yeah. I hope you're voting in the primary.
The primary already happened in Michigan.
Did you?
I couldn't vote. I'm an independent.
Oh, I forgot. Well, I'm assuming you're going to do an absentee ballot for the regular election.
Oh, for the regular election, I'm going to vote normally in Michigan. I'm going to be in Michigan, like a registered voter here to vote. I won't have to do an absentee.
Okay, I'm just making sure.
Yeah, but yeah,
This doesn't seem to bother you.
no, I understand the reasoning behind it, but I feel like, I mean, you have to have, hopefully everyone votes to make the cause. Like, you can be, I just feel like this has happened. Everyone's been angry, but then for whatever reason, the voter turnout wasn't there. And I feel like this only pays dividends if everyone actually votes. Because that's what makes the difference. That's how you get your people elected. And I feel like all these crazy stuff happened with police brutality, like over and over before Trump, and it's still, he got elected. I'm wondering if it'll be the same thing.
Like I said, I think it's the perfect storm. I think it's the fact that the United States is in chaos right now, and then it's just such a visceral thing to see someone's windpipe be crushed, and to have, I mean, it's just to see just the brutality of it, the up close, and for it to be so widespread. I think that's what makes the difference. And I think everyone can pay more attention because they're at home. There's not a lot of distraction.
Yeah, we'll see. I feel like it's, for as crazy as it is, I'm curious how it'll change, like, voters' perspectives.
But on a personal level, doesn't it really just like upset you?
Yeah, but I feel like this is as bad as it was before. Like, this is bad, and it was really bad before, and it's been bad. Like, I feel like, I'm just thinking of, like, if you're changing voter perspective, this is really bad, but how bad was it when the guy almost the same thing happened in New York before the last election. It was horrible. I mean, he was saying he can't breathe, and he was still suffocated to death, basically. And still, the votes went. I'm just wondering how it will change votes. Like, is a Republican going to change their perception based on this? And I honestly don't know.
I think the damage that's being like done to cities, I think it might, because Trump really just needs to have some verbal authority, because what needs to happen, because there's anarchy right now. There needs to be some message from the top down, and there's nothing. And I think that people are realizing, a lot of this destruction can kind of be avoided, or could kind of be avoided, if there was some sort of dialogue happening.
I guess I think they say like a lot of the looting and stuff, like 75% of it, I think was one of the articles, was it's from white anarchists. It's actually not from
Yeah.
the protesters. It's from just like these white people from the suburbs who come in and leverage it. So it's really not the protests that are causing it. But I feel like, if anything, Republicans, this is fuel. This is like, look at all the black people destroying our cities. This, like, it's completely the wrong narrative, but I feel like they're going to run with it. So I almost think the craziness helps them build their agenda of like, see, look what's happening. We can't have this. I know it doesn't make logical sense because it's not logical, but I feel like that's how the thought process is going to go.
Yeah, and I think that slowly there's going to be less people thinking that way. I'm already seeing it with him amongst people that 4 years ago wouldn't have batted an eye if something like this happened.
I hope so. Yeah, but as I guess if I was a betting man, at this point, I would still bet money that the people are going to vote Trump in 2020. But who knows? I mean, hopefully a lot of this stuff changes that. But I feel like a lot of, I don't know. It's everyone's just guessing, right? It's just me guessing, you guessing, and other people guessing. But
yeah, I'm surprised you're so nonchalant and indifferent about it. I get why. I get you're explaining why.
it's not indifferent, but it's more like how I think people are going to vote. People I know that are Republican, none of this is changing their viewpoints. And I know you're saying it is changing some viewpoints of people you know, so there is something to it. But I'm trying to think of like as a whole, I don't know. I feel like it's not going to swing voters the other way.
I guess I don't share your thoughts on that. I guess maybe I'm still in an optimistic phase, but I don't know. It's just something about this feels different than the other instances, and so I'm right now very optimistic that this will do something.
Yeah, well, we will see very shortly.
Yeah.
Within months.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I wish we could. I mean, obviously, I don't want to speed up time, but I wish we could just sort of like get the election now, so we could just get rid of Trump. It's just everything he touches, it's like it turns to trash. He just has this unique ability to destroy things.
Yeah, it'll all come down to it'll be like kind of like a reality show. It'll come down to these debates, and it won't even be about substance. It'll be about
The show.
the show, which is absolutely crazy. But sadly, Biden, I don't think will fare well in that atmosphere of making it like a spectacle, which is what American politics is now.
Yeah, it would be so incredible to like have the DNC go rogue and nominate Bernie.
Yeah, them. I know they're doing their best, but like them going conservative and going with the Clinton Biden approach has just screwed them. They'd be better off going the extreme.
Yeah.
You have to go to extreme to beat someone like this. And if you go conservative, I feel like you're at risk. And them not picking like the young, talented, charismatic Andrew Yang, Kamala Harris even, them going conservative, it has like remnants of Clinton. It just seems like, did you really pick what everyone stood behind? Because I feel like Democrats as a whole are a bit of a younger crowd, and Biden's just such a conservative choice. I feel like it's not exactly the big change that people wanted. He's not much of a change. I mean, compared to Trump, he's a huge change. But, like, he's not much of, like, a change against the system. Because, like, when Bernie dropped out, stocks went up because Wall Street was happy that Biden was going to be the Democratic frontrunner because they knew he wasn't going to upend Wall Street.
Well, he's status quo.
So he's not really going to, I feel like, give the big liberal changes that people want. So it's just such a safe choice. I feel like the safe choice is the risky choice.
Right now, because you're playing with risky on the other side. So if you have safe versus risky, people are still going to go with.
So yeah, I feel like, again, another year Bernie would have been their best bet, but again, it just didn't happen. Who knows?
Yeah, again, I mean, at this point, anyone is better. I mean, literally anyone.
Yeah, well, we'll see how people vote.
You just sound like a weary traveler when you talk about this. Like something in your voice, you just sound like exhausted.
Yeah, I feel like it's just like, you know, you see all this crazy stuff happening, you think like this have to breed change, but then you realize, wait, all this stuff kind of besides the pandemic, this stuff already happened and it still didn't cause people to vote against him. Like police brutality, this stuff's happened tenfold over, like, before he was elected. So that's, I guess, why I don't think this specific instance will change things. But I think it'll come down to the spectacle of the debate, for better or for worse.
Yeah, I guess so. But I think you should inject a little more optimism into your, I don't know, your thoughts. I think that lacking the frustration, like the people that are going, well, you know, it's not going to do anything. I think that's part of the problem. I think that we need to maintain a level of reasonable outrage amongst the general population to continually show that this is unacceptable.
And I think the protests themselves show that, but I mean, unless you're having open dialogue with Republicans, I don't think, like, outrage, I don't know. I don't think, unless you're getting across to the Republican voters.
No, I think that the cheesy cliche thing of every, you know, voice counts. I think that that's so true right now, because seeing one person say I'm in solidarity on Instagram and then another person say it, and then I watched a girl I went to college following through, and who's I would not have guessed would have done this. She bought one of the resources, a book that's been suggested about racism, was reading it. Within a day, she bought the book and was reading it. I mean, it's like the level of education and interest and caring is spreading like wildfire.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point.
And again, I could be in my own little echo chamber, but like I said, for example, he hasn't posted anything, but I didn't assume it from him because he's on the far, 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 far right. He's a House of Representatives member in the state of Arkansas. But like, just to give you I have, people as far right as that on my Instagram, and I've seen a good, healthy mix of people that are in support of it.
No, that's all positive. I guess, like, everyone, like, you stick to what you know and, like, who you're surrounded with. And I guess, like, I think if my friends are Republican, none of their votes are changing from this. 100%, I know that. For better or for worse. But then again,
do you ever break those topics with people?
That's my small subset. And no, it's more like a lot of them will even say, I don't like Trump, but they still won't go against their party. It's like a bigger than Trump thing. It's like I feel like Republicans and Democrats, it's that bipartisan line I think is so strong that, again, it's my small subset. As my small subset of friends who are Republican, nothing's changing their viewpoint. And even if they say they don't like Trump, it's still not changing their voting towards Republican.
Do you say anything back to that, or do you just go?
They don't really. I don't have social media, so I don't really know if. I mean, none of them really post rhetoric, but we don't really. I mean, Nick and I will talk about it, and someone I will talk. Like Brad, my friend Brad, and I will talk about it, but it's not like it'll be like, oh, like what do you think of this? And they give their thoughts, but it's not like they're super strong. Like, oh, Democrats ridiculous. Like they're not really strong the other way, but it's kind of like, yeah, I get your point, but I'm still. It's not like they're gonna vote their way. Like it's almost like you're like the word. This is just them, but they're not swayed from their vote.
Mhm. No, and I also think you're just not somebody that enjoys rocking the boat necessarily. So, like, if that were me, like, Abby and I vary vastly on our political beliefs, and we'll argue with each other till the cows come home. I mean, we'll yell at each other, but we're still always friends. But I will always, as long as we are friends, I will always challenge and have her question her beliefs. She does the same thing for me.
No, I think that's good, but I guess what way does she vote at the end of the day?
Well, we got into a blowout in New York after the election. She voted for Trump.
I guess that's the thing. I feel like even if like they understand your viewpoint and like they can see where, like, I guess not only do I know, like,
only voted for him because her dad like infiltrated her thought process. I think that she's like a step away from at least voting independent or libertarian.
I guess I think like either way she cast her vote, the way she cast her vote, like no matter how, like you can want to change someone's beliefs, but until they want to change them, I guess like challenging them helps them maybe think that way. But I feel like they're going to vote with what aligns with themselves. Even if they're challenged and they hear another point of view, they might accept it, but they're going to vote within, I don't know, like maybe you can adjust someone's beliefs to a degree, but I don't know. I feel like they're going to vote with what aligns with them in the end.
I guess, and maybe I'm delusional for thinking. Here's the thing, I'm never a converter, because I think that that's a recipe for disaster. I don't think you can ever convert somebody because converting means you're forcing. I think you can always just inform and inspire critical thinking and have people come to a decision by themselves. But I'm a firm believer in facts and science and reality, and I can get angry and let emotion sometimes cloud my vision. But for the most part, I'm very reality-based, and I like to, and I'm fortunate enough, I went to school to study politics, and I spend a lot of time researching it. So I don't think I'm smarter than anyone, but I do think that I sometimes do know factually more than other people. And I really like to tell people about it.
I guess it's hard to try to argue rationally with someone that doesn't think rationally. Like, you could give them
100%.
facts, but they're getting their news from Fox, which isn't facts. But then, like, you almost can't even reason. Like, it's a losing battle regardless. You're reasoning someone to get to their news from something that's based on just kind of encourage outrage. And anything you say will be from, quote, the left-wing agenda. They're just trying to, it's just very, very difficult. And I feel like, I don't know, it's just...
No, I hear what you're saying, but I recently watched, Fendi Blanket's so incredible, an interview Joe Rogan did with a black musician who was instrumental in having 200 members of the KKK leave the organization, and they give him their robes when they leave, and he's friends with them, and this guy's the coolest guy. His name's Daryl something, but it made me realize, like, the way, because I mean, you can pretty much say people of the KKK are not thinking rationally, and there's a deficit there. There's something wrong if you're a Klansman. But he was able to just be a human being and treat them like a human being and explain things to them with empathy and from a human perspective, and that's what can change people's minds. And that's what made me realize, like, there has to be a level of humanity whenever you're discussing something of importance with someone that's not quite all there when it comes to, rational thinking.
Yeah, definitely something to that.
So, I don't know, just from like a human perspective, the interview was great because it made you realize, like, when we disagree with people, we can't completely cast them aside as evil. I mean, unless they're like serial killers, because there's something to whatever they're thinking. And if a KKK member can leave that and not be a racist anymore, then I think anyone can critically think for themselves and not be a bad person.
Yeah, I think from a human scale, that's really powerful. Then I feel like you see Fox, they make Democrats, they're all just a bunch of bumbling idiots. And then you watch MSNBC, Republicans are a bunch of complete idiots. And then you're like, man, like, if people are using these sources to get their main information, each side is calling the other basically completely retarded.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's just like, man, like, how do you change that? Like, it is tough if you're a Republican and watch MSNBC and, like, these idiots don't know, and you're like, wait, they're calling me basically an idiot. And if you watch Fox, you're like, wait, they think we're the idiots? They're retarded. And it's just, I don't know, I guess you don't really change media that way because everyone has these agendas, but it's such a hard way the media is just so powerful. I guess you have to find a way to...
Well, I think that we should remove the televised 24-hour news cycle. I don't think that should be a thing anymore. And I think that we need multiple parties. I think
I feel like having two parties is ridiculous.
Yeah, most countries don't. And, you only have so many fingers on your hand. You can only point so many directions. If there are multiple parties, there's less singular aggression. It would be more spread out. There'd be more dialogue because you'd have to work as a community rather than one versus the other.
Yeah. Sadly, right now, there was an article in the Times saying, like, how Fox News right now has double the ratings of MSNBC, like, throughout this madness. So, like, the staunch Republican channel has double the viewership of the staunch Democratic channel. I mean, granted, they're like diehard fans of Fox News, but it's crazy.
Yeah, I just
the viewers kind of give some indication of how people are going to vote, at least. Just some of the extreme instances. And Fox News is just getting more prevalent within the ratings.
Yeah, I just don't know how that... I don't understand the die-heartedness when it comes to Trump. I just don't get how people don't see how childish and unaware and selfish he is. I would understand if it was like a Rush Limbaugh, or no, who's the guy that shot the other guy in the face?
Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney, where he's evil, but he's clear about where his loyalties lie and what he's going to do. Trump is just, it's like a John Mulaney bit. He's a horse in a hospital. You don't know, you can't bet on a horse in a hospital because you don't know where they're going to go next. There's no sense of any reliability.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like as I don't know, people that want to hedge their bets on something, that he is the last person you should hedge your bet on. Just from I don't care what you believe, just from a reliability, common sense standpoint. He's just not reliable enough to trust to go any direction.
Mm-hmm.
So I think but I mean, we're like the 80 millionth person to have a commentary about how this has happened and why he's there. And I think he's ultimately there, though, to show us how we need to protect democracy and how quickly things can get out of hand in America and how we can even fall for the most obvious of cults.
Yeah, to some degree.
It just bums me out. But let's get on to my scripts, because I really haven't talked to you not in person, but text. I hate communicating long things via text because you can't just like explain things well. I don't know, you might disagree, but I hate having like any more than 5 texts in a row that are like paragraphs, because I feel like it stifles the conversation.
Mm-hmm. So how do you want to start it off?
I think I'm going to paste in, this is meta, but I'm going to paste in an intro. I'm going to do an intro at the end, so I'll just keep in some of this commentary if you're cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I wanted to get to this anyway, but I didn't do an intro, so, yeah. But, yeah, so I gave, my solo pod, I gave a rundown of my script and what it was about and the rationale behind it and all of that. So tell me your setup when you were reading it. Where were you sitting? What was your vibe? What time of day was it?
I got it. The kitchen table. It's probably like afternoon time frame.
Okay.
Maybe like evening. And just went through it. Played the YouTube bits as they came up,
Mhm.
and just tried to get as you read through it, you try to visualize it like in like a movie standpoint,
Mhm.
or how you would visualize it going through, and trying to see like if the song makes sense. Like if you're watching a movie, would that be the song you thought would come up? Or if you're watching a movie, would that be like the scene you would think would occur between like the dialogue, stuff like that?
Okay. And what was your overall opinion on the tone? Did it seem to fit flow-wise?
Yeah, I think the tone was pretty good throughout. I made comments on it. There were two songs in the beginning that I thought were almost reminded me of like Southern, like
Mhm.
like they didn't seem like they fit with like New York City.
Mhm.
But a lot of the other songs I thought were a really good mix of modern and old, and they did fit really well.
Okay.
I thought I really the best part I think of the whole thing was the character development. I feel like I really understood what every character's purpose and personality was, even if they were only introduced for like a page.
You know, that's so funny. That was my biggest concern because I thought the thing you were going to say was that the characters were not well developed enough and that they weren't intriguing enough because I was just I don't know why. I
No, I
felt
feel
like
like it.
my scene description was good, but I was just worried about the dialogue and the character development. So it's funny that that was the thing you said was good because I was expecting you to go, not that compelling or not that great character development or why is that character even in here? Like they don't matter.
No, I feel like I understood. And I feel like a lot of the times you don't need to give like the man in it. What is his name? Otto.
Mhm.
I don't need his backstory to know what he's like. I understood through the description of like, oh, I know exactly what type of guy this is like. Like,
That was my goal. I wanted to be more of a
um,
silent introduction to the character.
yep, I knew what the baker, the guy at the market was like. I
Mhm.
knew what the police officers were like. I knew what the neighbor was like. You don't need a full description of their history to know what they're like, and I feel like I understood. Oh, I know exactly someone like this. Um, so I think the
Hmm.
character development was very good without having to dig deep. Like you knew who they were like what their persona was. Only a few times, like I think I noted it, like someone like Otto, someone like with his certain characteristics,
Mhm.
even though he's trying to keep a public front of a good guy, even though he might not be the best behind closed doors,
Mhm.
even with that public front, I couldn't see him like goofing around in the market. Even
Yeah.
though he has a public front of nice guy, that to me would be a one step too much for someone like him. But then I understood the purpose of trying to get to the apple leads to the flashbacks. Like the apple has a lot of significance. So I understood of like why that scene happened, but maybe it would occur like slightly differently.
Yeah, I'm gonna revisit that because I still want to keep because I want him to be like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, where you have to have that to understand, to have him have some kernel of likability. Does that make sense? Because even the worst characters have to have some element of likability, and because of the way the story like the trajectory of the storyline, he has to have some moments of like childlike joy. So I'm gonna revisit that scene, but I get what you're saying because
I think the best
I
description of
agree with it.
him is like I wonder if it would help pin it down rewatching episodes of Big Little Lies. He's like that. He's like Nicole
Mm.
Kidman's husband. Like I
Mhm.
guess that's who I visualized. Basically visualized Nicole Kidman's husband in Big Little Lies.
That's
It's like the
so
epitome.
funny.
He's like the
Yeah.
perfect guy. Everyone likes him. He's so likable, but he's still pretty close to the chest. He doesn't give up too much in public.
Mhm.
He's and then obviously behind closed doors, he's crazy. I don't know
Yeah.
if like there's like anything from that, but yes, he did show signs of like there's like flashbacks of him playing with the kids, so like there's a way to kind of show his human side, but I don't know the best way to show it.
Yeah. I mean that the way you said that just gave me because I didn't even think of that as a reference character. But that's funny because it's so much like that. Wow, that's maybe I subconsciously was writing writing that. But I also wanted Christoph Waltz in Inglourious Basterds with the cake scene. Am I thinking of the
Yeah.
right movie? That
Yeah.
like push and pull of like fun and like playful, but then underneath every moment is this weird pull where you're like, is he gonna flip over the table or not? You know what I mean? It's like a not enjoyable fun.
I guess even that such stiff playfulness. I feel like that. I mean, it's definitely hard to convey. I guess it would still have to like translate around that scene, but slightly change it to almost create a little bit more
Tension, more of that push and pull.
tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's that. Now that you're saying this, I'm thinking about it more. Yeah, I have a few ways I can sort of edit that. But yeah, I wanted every character, even the small characters, to have. I wouldn't like, for example, we've been watching a few random movies with an actress I like, Allison Janney, and every character she plays, even if it's the smallest character or she's in the whole movie or the whole TV show, whatever, you want a spin-off series of her role, whatever it is. And so I wanted each character to almost be like, to keep you intrigued, because I think you need that to have a really good story. You want every role to be like, wow, I want to know their entire backstory. I want to know more about them, because you want almost every character to be their own scene stealer, maybe even in their own quiet little way.
Mhm.
And so that's what I wanted, especially with the younger police officer, because I didn't even know if I wanted to keep him in throughout the series. But regardless, I wanted to make sure that you were watching that and going, I wonder what his deal is where he has this need to be the assertive one.
Yeah, I thought like the neighbor woman reminded me of maybe like Breaking Bad. I don't think you've seen it, but Skylar's sister.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yep. Like that reminded me of that. The older police officer who doesn't really care anymore reminded me kind of. I mean, he can be like any old police officer,
Mhm.
but he's kind of like The Wire. There's an older police officer in The Wire. So I mean, they all translate to a lot of storylines. The young police officers like actually cares, is in trying to make his mark. It seemed like, and
Mhm.
I don't know. You can get an idea of like what his persona was behind the scenes. But other than
Yeah,
that,
and
I'm
I
trying to
think
think of
too
others.
the goal was to have a sense of familiarity, because all the characters, the roles are very traditional. Police officer, shopkeeper, neighbor. They're all very familiar, kind of on paper bland roles. So I wanted to make sure that there was, I don't know, some subversive nature to each character to keep it refreshing. To have it be familiar but also not familiar.
Yeah, but it seemed like the young officer is someone who's trying to make his way and make change with a system that's not accustomed to change.
Mhm.
Like the old officer's kind of like, it seemed like, hey, this is just another thing. Like he's trying to make his positive mark, but you might think, hey, if he works long enough on this like police force, he's going to be like the old officer one day with it. Just kind of like gives into the status quo.
Yeah.
It seems like the neighbor woman, it's pretty open ended on if she and the guy had a fling at one point or what happened.
Oh,
That could be an open storyline. They're kind of like unfinished business.
yeah, that's ironically I'm glad you picked up on that, because so far I've had only your feedback and other feedback from someone else, and she didn't pick up on that at all. And I was trying to make it clear but also unclear. So basically what I would probably do is have the neighbor's sort of like repulsive to Otto, and basically she has a big mouth and she's irritating. And it was just like an accident one night. But she thinks there's something more, and it's put her to a high esteem, and she feels now higher up than the woman. But Otto's now just irritated that she's now entrenched in his life.
Yeah, it's kind of like, again, like Big Little Lies. Like, that guy is married to Nicole Kidman. Like, why would he cheat on her with all these other women?
Oh,
But
yeah.
he ends up, for whatever reason, doing all the stuff he does. But it's kind of like, why? Like, what's, and like, I don't know, the whole mystery behind it. So I feel like there's a lot of, like unanswered questions there.
Yeah, it's so funny, Big Little Lies, because I love that show, and I was not, again, using that as a reference point at all. But it's high praise to say that there's story similarities, because I think the writing on that show was done really, really well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of anything else I pulled from.
The flashbacks, did you find those to be mysterious but interesting?
Yeah, I think those were engaging to the point of your understanding, like how they're connected. I don't know if you could, I know they're connected on a singular focus of the apple. Like that's what kind of causes the flashbacks. I don't know if they could, like, the flashbacks can maybe be connected to more than just the apple, but it's like the apple's a good frame of reference because it's still only the first scene and act. So I think you can't have all these other different things that cause the flashback.
Well, I also wanted to make a statement with the concept of excess too, because the food that she saw on the ground at the one scene caused the flashbacks for the concentration camp scene. So I wanted that to have more of an added meaning of like, wow, look how wasteful, this culture is. Even, this is set in the 1950s, but even the 1950s.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and maybe that's just more of like a quiet little moment. But what did you think that flashback was done in good taste? Because I wanted
No, the flashbacks
I
think they made sense and they tied together well. I guess maybe to hammer the home of excess. Like I know you touched on when I think the couple is coming home with full bags, and then Otto, the man, is carrying them. Like she doesn't even have to worry about carrying her own grocery bags. And Olga, or Maria, the woman, she carries her own bags with whatever like feeble groceries she can afford. That kind of characterized of like abundance against someone who can't afford the abundance. But maybe like I'm trying to think of like to hammer home the point of like proceeding like before a flashback occurs, since Maria is always looking in their window of their home, and a lot of the times they're like doing the dance of pushing and pulling and fighting. Like they get along and then they argue. Like maybe there'd be a scene of them like eating like a dinner that's a like an exaggerated dinner. Like maybe their maid prepares them, all this food that they can't even eat. Like they eat this beautiful spread and they barely touch it, and then it's thrown away in the trash. I don't know, like some way to exemplify how not just that the foods, maybe all the food in grocery bags is a more subtle way to do it. But maybe a more obvious way would be to have them eating this extravagant dinner in the window, and then Maria seeing it, all these leftovers just thrown in the trash. And then it flashes back to like them scrounging through trash. I don't know, something like that. Maybe it's maybe the subtleness is probably a bit more clever, but maybe if it's a bit more obvious, it'd be easier to see that.
No, I like that, and it could be, that could be a concept for a later episode because it's, if those little hints are dropped throughout, then you can sort of build it to be more obvious, and it won't be cliched because it'll have been peppered throughout. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. And then what did you think of the final scene?
It was a great cliffhanger. You see, they finally made a connection of who they are and how they're connected, and then you wonder like how they possibly gonna approach this after everything that's happened.
Did it seem obvious, the ending?
Obvious. No, I don't think it. Like I feel like after the Apple scene was referenced in the first couple times, it seemed like it was going to be over. So I wouldn't say it'd be obvious to think at the end that that scene would click with the wealthy woman when she finally sees how the figures resemble her sisters and how that flashback to that specific scene would occur. So, no, I don't think it was obvious.
And did also trying to make it clear that the flashbacks are still very unreliable with the push and pull between the one flashback to make it seem like basically it's an unreliable narrator essentially telling the story. Did you kind of pick up on that?
Yeah, I mean, Maria's side of the story is always pretty consistent with the Apple and her sister and them trying to share it before the parents come. But then Olga's side is her side's pretty fuzzy. There's the two boys in there, and she thinks she potentially has brothers. But it's also interesting that she has the same scene in mind. So you're like, okay, they both have the same memory in general, which is interesting. Wow, they both have the same general memory.
Mhm.
But then you would think on her side, why would she have two boys in the memory? Like even if someone tried to alter her memory, that's a weird way to still remember the same things in your lives, but replace them with other people.
Mhm.
So no, I think you still get that. You're still trying to see. I think through reading it though, you're geared towards leaning towards Maria's side of the story. I think it's hard to not argue that you're geared towards thinking that, oh, she's right. Like this is definitely her sister.
Mhm.
Even though her memories give doubt, I think the reader has to have some belief that she has the right side.
Okay. No, you're kind of picking up everything that I was trying to, sort of spread throughout the story. So I'm glad that it's being understood. And I'm trying to think of what did anything tonally seem uniquely me or like dialogue or like anything seem like, oh, you should lean into this.
Mm-hmm. Trying to think back. I would say The descriptions of when she appeared in the windows, I thought were very good.
Mhm.
Like the dynamic of the man and woman without them actually speaking
Mhm.
was pretty well done and pretty interesting, original. Um, I guess I thought the storyline itself was pretty unique, like pretty original.
That was my next
And I
question.
feel like, a lot of the stuff is taken like the police scenes. Like those are what I anticipate those to be. Like it was
Mhm.
very well done. And it's like it's like I've seen it before in a different way. So I thought, you're conveying a pretty good message. But that itself, I think, I understood because I've seen it portrayed a different way in TV. But I think just kind of meshing. I don't think there's necessarily tone from specific scenes as much as like the originality of the idea as a whole. Like the whole thing, I thought was pretty original, and
Oh,
it was
good.
pretty well done. But yeah, if you wanted me to have to say specific scenes, I would say, I guess the unspoken scenes between the man and the woman,
Mhm.
like where no one's talking but they're conveying kind of the body language and what's happening.
Yeah, I mean that was my ultimate goal for a pilot episode was to have more power in the silence and the visuals, which is hard to do in a script. But my goal was to convey that in a way that it wants you. I feel like a good show pulls you in with good cinematography and good visuals. Like you obviously like you have to have a good pilot script and you have to have compelling characters, but I think that the first thing you attach on to is what you see and the storytelling element of visually what's happening. And then you can get into, I don't know, at least for me, because I really need a show to be visually well done. I need the cinematography to really be superb. And so I was sort of writing for, I don't know, someone like me that would be watching it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a lot of the cinematography, when I read it, what I pictured was to show you,
Kind
like
of.
Penn Badgley. Like a lot of the stalking and just not even stalking, but following and curiosity. There's a lot of what I imagined, like when it hit, he was trying to like understand who she was and get a glimpse in her world without being seen. So
Mhm.
I feel like there was a lot of, especially that's in New York. She lives in a New York brownstone apartment. So I feel like there's a lot of, like the way they filmed that was very well done. So I feel like I kind of was trying to see it through that lens.
But it did seem too much like a copycat.
I mean, were you even using that as reference though?
It's funny, as I was writing the window scene, I thought jokingly, I was like, huh, this is like you. But no, I didn't use it it came to me as I was writing it, not um, as like a pre-planned concept.
No, I don't think it's is a copycat. Um, one thing I think could be interesting would be to expand upon what she sees when she looks into the apartment, like other little details, or
Mm,
a little more in-depth view on the way they live.
yeah, I mean, I have an idea of she's let into the apartment basically and does like a look around in a later episode.
Okay, yeah, that'd be interesting if it was like,
So you
yeah,
get
like,
little like stop scenes of like the camera panning on a photograph or a statue or a piece of artwork.
yeah, or
Um,
like the bookshelf. I'm sure there could be some interesting books you put on the bookshelf.
yeah. There's plenty of um, elements that you can sort of, and almost like two. I haven't even decided because this is an added thing I haven't done in the main outline, but um, like an added feeling of a mouse, trapped in a corner with a cat, like sort of like her realizing everything, all her surroundings around her, everything in the apartment is somehow a danger to her. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Almost like a slow pan of like, oh no, look at this book, look at this, look at this, look at this photo, look at, like oh, it's
Mhm.
too late to get out.
Yeah, I think that'd be a very interesting part to expound upon would be like the apartment itself.
Yeah. Now, could you see this, down the line as like an actual thing on TV? Obviously I need a lot more work and a lot, more knowledge, but like, did it seem like, oh, this could potentially be something that's somewhere acted out and then put on a screen somewhere?
Definitely. I mean, I guess reading through, you could see I kind of thought of like pulled stuff from different shows itself. So I feel
Mhm.
like I've seen where parts of it reminded me of different shows. I think
Mhm.
Big Little Lies, You, The Wire, um, I mean those are just three frame of references. So I feel like there's it definitely could be a show depending on what you want your focus to be on, I guess.
Mhm. Now, do you think for me that, obviously, do you think there's enough raw ability and talent there for me to potentially look to consider this as a viable career choice for more education?
Yeah, definitely. I don't know the ins and outs. Like, I don't know how you're supposed to write like scenes with like descriptors of like settings and tones. Like, I don't know if there's certain formats you're supposed to use, or I don't know how that stuff goes. But I think overall it conveys a pretty good message of how you'd want actors or characters to, I guess, for lack of a better word, act between scenes. So
Mhm.
no, I could definitely see it translating. Um, like I just don't know if there's a specific way to write scenes in a certain format, or if you have to like how to develop settings and tones in a certain way.
Well, yeah, I need more technical skill, and I'm well aware of that fact because there's, in the class I was taking, there's only so much information that I was taught, sort of just like the basics of using this particular software to write the script. But half the battle was just getting that far. So for me, I'm like, okay, I can learn the other formatting stuff. I mean, that's not, that's like learning the format of the SATs. Do you know what I mean? It's more just like a formality.
Yeah. No, but no, I think the creativity and the originality was all there. So I think I could see it.
Now, would you watch that show slash what would be needed for you to be compelled to be interested in something like that?
What time period is it supposed to be? Like the 50s or something?
Yeah, early to mid 50s.
So since I don't watch many like older shows, I think watching something that'd be based in like older New York, for me to be compelled, I would have to have the storyline. I think would be good, but it would all come down to how it's portrayed. I'd probably want to, like, I feel like I'd be interested in almost like a Sherlock Holmes style within the apartment, like finding the mysteries hidden within the apartment that tell the story
Mhm.
a certain way, and having her kind of discover them through it all. So I think like more like a mystery approach, like a very layered approach to Easter eggs hidden within the apartment would be very interesting.
Mm.
Um, and that could be a pretty slow approach to her finding these, and that could be the relationship with her sister, helping ease that. A good soundtrack, I think that's a big part of it. Yeah, mixing like old and new.
Mm.
Another part would be, I guess it seems like it'd be like almost cliche having Otto, the guy, and Maria, like him just spite her and do everything he can to stop her. It
Mhm.
almost would be more interesting if he like, I don't know, if they almost developed some relationship that became more than just cat and mouse, him chasing her away.
Yeah. Well, I had a
Like,
concept of a slow warming up, and then to sort of um go in one direction, and then a sudden moment of impact where that all falls apart.
yeah, like maybe something happens where they finally agree to invite her to dinner, and then she starts getting kind of like welcomed in. And then, I don't know, like a way to lure her in, and so she's not just always on the outside trying to get in.
Well, yeah, and then I was gonna have him potentially try to bribe her or something, and then that's where everything falls apart.
Yeah, I guess there's definitely a bunch of different ways you can go with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think to engage, if I was going to think of a way to engage me, I feel like it'd be the details,
Mhm.
like creating like the focus on these very specific things would be interesting, and make it go from a broad storyline to very specific. Like you have to start, like whoever's watching it really has to start paying attention.
Yeah,
Nothing's obvious. Everything's pretty subtle.
that's sort of how the story sort of the trajectory has sort of happens. But I can definitely, now that you're saying all this, and you're sort of piquing my storytelling, ideas right now, and so I'm sort of thinking, oh, I can add this here, add this there. Do you know what I mean? To sort of, because I agree with you, and so I obviously certain things. I was like, on some of the music stuff, I disagree with you because I think tonally the music is what I'm looking for, but I can hear what you're saying. But yeah, I want to sort of create more of an aha, like almost like an I Spy book where you're like, oh, I found this, I found that, I'm so close to finding all the little pieces needed.
Mhm.
So yeah, I appreciate you taking the time too to set aside your time and read it, because I'm really just trying to gauge people's reactions, opinions, and just sort of have some ability to look outside my own writing and figure out what's working and what's not.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be pretty interesting to hear what everyone else has to say.
Yeah, and so for the other input I've got thus far, there was both you and her agreed on one line that I was also not thrilled about, so I'm going to revisit that. Trying to think what else. She was not into the Psychotic Girl song, but I feel like that song fit the scene so perfectly. And so you specifically said that you liked that song with that scene. So if other people say, I'll reconsider, but I really like that song with that scene. I feel like it fit perfectly.
Mhm.
So that was another thing. And then she wouldn't necessarily be my target audience either. So it's, and I would not consider you either to be a target demographic of someone that would watch it. But she said she would want a happy ending.
Oh no, I think I don't think happy. I feel like open-ended, ambiguous endings are the best. Like people want. I mean, maybe on like basic television, people want very basic endings, but I feel like your best shows on HBO and all those, they're very open-ended.
Yeah, obviously that's, I would never agree with having a happy ending for something like this, because that's just not how, I think there's a time and a place for that, but I'm not the person to be creating this sorts of stories. But the ending I have in mind, which I think is going to be the ending I stick with, is half resolved and half unresolved. Does that make sense? So you get sort of a feeling of resolution, but it's also a feeling of unsatisfying resolution. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Which I honestly think is the best sort of ending, because you're getting an ending, but there's still the element of, but what if?
Yeah.
So once I finish my episode guide, I'll send that over to you with all of my final storyline tie-ins and all of that. You can tell me if you think that is well done.
Yeah, definitely.
And then I need to find some sort of class I can take this summer. And then I'm going to start building my spreadsheet with all the programs I want to apply to and what's required. This is going to be an endeavor.
Good way to thoroughly think it out.
Yeah, and I already have some story ideas for whatever other scenes I have to write for like sample writings to submit for things. I have 2 story concepts that I want to play with, and I would only have to write a few pages of the script, so I can it wouldn't be hard to do that, and then if I really like it, I can expand. But I told you about one of them. It's basically if slavery never ended, and it's the 1960s.
Mhm.
So what would be, desegregation time is still slavery time, and then a woman finds that her husband has an affair with a black male slave, and then everything falls apart. And I think that the music would be like set with this, 60s music with that sort of like backdrop and like I think that would be like really a unique thing to play around with.
Mhm.
Especially with everything going on right now. I think it also has an added element of we take things like slavery ending for granted and things like that, and World War II ending, but one drop different, the water, pools here instead of there, and then, history can change forever. So I want to sort of have that be an underlying theme to the story. And then a separate idea I have, which honestly I think would be almost a really cool like actual play, like on stage, would be post car crash. 5 families are in a waiting room, and their teenage or college age kids are all in surgery, and there's one survivor, and they're all sort of reckoning with what's happened, and they're all hoping basically like the darkest thing ever, which is basically hoping that all these people's kids are dead and then your kid is alive. And then there's flashbacks of each family and sort of like the darkness or the good things that have, transpired between each family and how it all connects.
So is the reader supposed to, or the whoever's watching it's supposed to kind of have a family they're rooting for?
Kind of. It's almost like that train track theory where it's like any lever which way the lever pulls, it's still going to be uncomfortable. So it's like this weird thing where you're rooting for somebody, but you shouldn't be rooting for somebody, but you know that no matter what, one person is going to be living. One family member of these 5 families. And, it might not be the person that necessarily deserves it or the family that, you know what I mean? It's just this really like, oh, it's just kind of how the cookie crumbles. Whatever happens, happens.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think of that? Does that seem compelling?
That one seems way more interesting than the first one.
Really?
In my opinion.
Okay. That the tough thing with something like that is all dialogue and storytelling. The second one. So that would be a pretty intense endeavor to make a scene, to have a scene carry through in one place solely based in dialogue. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Would you be trying to get something that the audience would be most intrigued with? I feel like it's harder to sell the first one.
See, I think the first one is an obvious sell. People love the 60s. Obviously racism stuff is very, very big right now. And
I guess the second one seems more original to me.
Okay.
I feel like even though the first one, it is an original idea, a lot of that stuff seems very played out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Where the second one seems like, I don't really have anything to base this off of. It's an original idea. I feel like it's more, you can be more original with it. Where the other one, I feel like you can be original, but you still have to go within some guidelines. You can't just take full creative liberties when you talk about something like that.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit more of a path you have to tread to make it work. Yeah, it's weird. The second story, again, it's strange. I have these like weird like daydreams. Like I had a daydream about this story. I've had it for like, I don't know, probably like 5 years now. Where it's like the story just came to me. It's weird.
Yeah, I think that one's more interesting.
Okay. Yeah, and I like I think not a lot of stories focus on just like the true like unsavory parts of life, like which it's so true that like in an instant like that people would hope that the other kids would be dead so their kid would be living. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And I just feel like there's not a lot of stories that really make note of the ugliness of what being a human entails.
Yeah, I mean everyone's thinking selfishly.
Mm-hmm. there might be a flash of that here or there in a movie or show, but it's never truly noted. And so, it's funny, I thought of this story. It might have been, I think it was on a hike or something, and it like came to me as like a monologue. Like I had like a thought, I'm like, oh, this character has this sort of like break, and they have to like basically say like, you know, you wish that my, sibling was dead. You wish this person's sibling was dead. You know what I mean? It's sort of like this final aha moment where it's like, yeah, we're going to call out the person for basically saying, yeah, I hope everyone else's kid is dead and mine's alive. And
Yep.
it's sort of like a tension breaker. And so that's how I sort of thought of the story randomly one day. So,
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one to go to.
yeah, and I think I would just start doing, once I finish all this, I would just start like, putting little clips, ideas together of like, sort of like, here's a piece of dialogue I'd want. And then I would sort of weave the story. Because I think if I just start writing it, it'll just seem cliche.
Mhm.
But, any story that you think I would do well in telling, that there's a direction I should go in that it seems fitting?
Mm. I think one that kind of like questions like societal norms as a whole. You'd have to find, you have to kind of get a little more specific, but I don't know, find your why. Like, why do we do this thing? Or like, why does everyone do this? Like, or why is this the norm?
Mhm.
Like, questioning how ridiculous, like pointless it is we do this, or I don't know, something with everyday life, which was like, why do we even do that?
Yeah,
Um,
sort of like a social justice element, or like I don't know, a philosophical element.
mhm,
Yeah, because if I would ever have something that would become a thing, a completed project, I would want it to have a political or philosophical or cultural or social undertone that has meaning, that can be like used as a historical example for like, oh, this was written in this time because this stuff was happening.
yeah. The only other thing I think of would be, I guess if you followed someone's life, but the focus was on their thoughts and like what they were thinking internally, but then like just the comedy, or the dark comedy behind like what they actually end up saying or doing. Um, I guess it maybe be like the opposite of a Curb Your Enthusiasm. You know how it exaggerates what
Mm.
he thinks into his actions, but this would be like focusing on the thoughts and just the irony how people think this way, but in reality they act a certain way. I like focus on the inner thoughts, and then the comedy would be like, wow, how they actually act and going against what they actually think.
So maybe almost like being alive but never really alive because they never say literally anything that they think.
Yeah, like you're
Almost similar to a choose your own adventure of someone's life works out this way because they spoke their mind, and then this person, the same person, didn't speak their mind, and this is where their life has ended up.
Yeah, you could do it that way, or you could do it just like the comedy of someone who like, it's just, they end up just their inner battle behind, like their actions never match up with how they actually feel, and it's just kind of like a comedy almost. You can
So
make
almost,
a dark
almost
comedy
like
or a comedy, but just like how hard it is to actually like translate.
very Woody Allen-esque, and almost like a devil on your shoulder, almost like a second character, but it's just the person's natural thoughts.
Yeah, and I think you can make that person as, you can make that align to your own thoughts, or you can make them a completely original character.
So almost
Yeah.
like it's very surreal element.
Yeah, I mean, they're just going through everyday life, but they have how they think they want to go through it, but the reader or whoever's watching it gets both sides. They understand, they get to hear the inner dialogue of how the person wants to act, but then they also get to see how they actually react.
It so it'd be like a Stranger Than Fiction type setup where you're hearing thoughts.
Yeah, you get the thoughts.
Oh, that's a very cool. It reminds me of a combo of. Have you read Crime and Punishment?
I've read parts, not the whole
The
thing.
character Raskolnikov, how he sort of loses it and he sort of detaches from reality and is always afraid that someone's up on him. So there's like an element of separation, and he sort of has like a bird on his shoulder type person, like almost character. And then it reminds me of that Albert Camus book, The Stranger.
Oh yeah,
You lent me that book.
Yeah, I didn't finish, or I read most of it, but I didn't finish it.
There's an element of surrealness to it, and almost a detachment.
Yeah, then I think it'd be interesting if you captured that within today's environment.
That would be next level difficult to make it work, but I think if it worked, I think that could be like a big thing.
But I think the only way it would work is you're not trying to make it sound like a certain person. You're either making it sound like you or something you think would be interesting. You're not trying to like gear it towards anyone or anything. You just have to be something you genuinely are interested in or think would be kind of funny.
Are you meaning me specifically?
Yeah.
So it would almost have to be my own thoughts.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there'd be any other way to write it. It's weird. I think whenever I visualized it, I would picture a male character doing it, but I think that would be an added element of intrigue having it be female, because it's an added element of be well behaved, be prim, be proper, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Huh. Nate, you might have come up with a jackpot idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it'd be interesting to just hear, if you just brainstorm it, what you come up with.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even. Again, that would require basically like field work, essentially, of me interacting with other people and noting what I'm doing and then what I'm thinking. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So, I mean, that would be a process, but I mean, what else am I going to do? And I don't know, I think I've had so much fun doing this. Like, it's weird. It's like I finally found a place to put my interest and my need to tell stories. I found an outlet for it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's definitely a really good outlet to kind of let your thoughts show.
And there will always be a need for storytelling because we're humans and we, even caveman days, we had, an orator that would be around the fire, telling stories. So there will always be a need for that.
Yeah, there's you've probably heard the Robin Williams quote on art.
Maybe, but refresh my memory.
Where is it? It's from one of his movies. Let's see. Hmm. Oh, what is it? Oh, it's medicine, law, business, engineering are all noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, and romance are what we stay alive for.
Oh, I like that. I might have heard that a long time ago, but
Yeah, it's from one of his, I forget what movie's in. But, it's kind of like, yeah, you need all these things, but what's the purpose of us being alive? And it's kind of saying, yeah, creativity and being able to read it and watch it. That's kind of why we work to stay alive.
yeah, I mean, that's the distinction between humans and animals and things like that. We we have a love for the aesthetics, the beautiful things in life, the special things. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna keep seeing where this takes me. I mean, again, it's weird, but I feel like this pandemic has sort of put me in this place where I'm like, I don't know, I now truly have found the thing I want to do in some capacity, which is storytelling. And I can do that in a million different ways, but I have a secondary word to describe what I want to be. I'm already a writer. You were kind enough in forcing me to use the term writer, and now I do, and now this has led me to realize I want to tell stories. I want to be a storyteller.
It's a noble pursuit.
Yeah, hopefully it becomes a fiscally returnable pursuit, but I mean, worst case scenario, I just keep, the struggling artist route. So you know, there's hope.
As long as you're putting stuff out there, you're working towards something.
Yeah, and I'm, gonna probably apply to some literary magazines tonight, and I've been writing and creating more than I have in a long, long time. So I mean, this has been really fun, and I'm gonna make sure that I maintain this momentum.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Just keep on cranking stuff out. Stuff you enjoy writing about, stuff that you feel like you can keep making better.
Yeah, exactly. And I did the thing that I didn't think I'd be able to do, which is write a pilot episode of a script. So, I mean, this has sort of proven to myself that I'm capable of writing an entire script if I want to. It just takes time. It's just every day I'll just, it seems manageable. I think before writing the whole thing, a finished thing seemed unmanageable. And now I'm like, oh, it might take me 6 months. But I can do that.
Yep.
Just time. And you do, like, I don't know, 30 minutes a day, a page a day, whatever, and then you can hit that goal.
Yeah, just keep doing all those small tasks over and over and over.
Yeah. All right, well, let's end on I don't know, I didn't come up with a question or anything for today. Let me think of something. What's something you wish more people knew about you, or what was something that you wish people could know about you without you even saying anything, like a stranger on the street, like about your character?
Um, it depends on not so much as like my character. Maybe it all goes together, but like I don't really care. Like it seems like a lot of people out and about are you're trying to impress someone or just like I don't know, give off a certain vibe. And it's
Mhm.
like who are you doing it for? Like basically like I don't really care about like are you wearing like certain clothes or acting the way you are to try to get like a response from people. I feel like I don't know, like I just read The Catcher in the Rye, and his whole thing is like, you've read it probably a few times,
Mhm.
and his whole thing is like he hates phoniness. I feel like it's just I don't know. It's like you want people just be yourself. Like what? Like it's like you're so everyone's so worried about what everyone else thinks about them. Just like I don't know. Just who cares what car you drive? What kind of clothes you wear? Just I mean, like if you wear clothes to fit in, just like I don't know, like wear whatever you want to wear, drive whatever you want to drive, just like do whatever you enjoy. I feel like everyone kind of does what they think allows them to fit in, or what is like the societal norm.
Wow, that's such a wholesome, sweet message.
I don't know. I mean, I do it too. Like I mean, but then again, like I don't know. Like why do we all do what we do? Like why do you want to have the nice car? And then, I mean, nice clothes. Like I guess you can say you enjoy them, but to a degree, it's more than that, right? You want to you want like random strangers to be impressed.
They're status symbols.
It's like, what's the point? I don't know.
Well, I
Like,
think
imagine if
that
everyone just was like, if everyone just like represented, just wore whatever, I don't know, like represented themselves, like their individual personalities, that stuff wouldn't be no one really would care anymore. Because that stuff would be boring.
I think that that's when humans will go to the next level of evolution, when we can move beyond the need to conform and find out a way of life that works best for us, the image that works best for us, culture, religion, et cetera, et cetera. But we're not there yet. But I think that's why you have such universality about you. I think because you lack a lot of judgment that most people seem to carry with themselves, that I'm 100% guilty of. Because ironically enough, as I was coming up with this question, which I had just, it just popped into my brain, my first instinct was, basically my judgment comes from a place of kindness and caring. So the polar opposite of what you're saying. So I don't know. I think that there's a real rarity to the way that you think. And I know that you think that everyone thinks the way that you think, which it should be that way. But I think there are a lot of broken people in the world, myself included, that really desire mass quantities of attention. And so by dressing a certain way and having certain things and being a certain way, it fulfills that need and fills that hole of a massive group of people giving you attention, and in your mind you equate attention with love, and you seem to be missing that, which everyone should be, because it's a healthier way to be.
But I guess, would you rather have love from like your intimate friends and family, or from Carol from Wilkinsburg, or John from Upper St. Clair, or so and so from Detroit, like just these nameless faces that you're never going to see again.
But I get a weirder, more enjoyable sense of belonging and importance when strangers or large quantities of people that I really don't have a connection to give me attention or like me or seem interested in me. It's a weirder, different kind of rush.
So I feel like I guess if in the end it leads to like a self-happiness, I guess it's probably a positive thing, because it really doesn't hurt anything or anyone. I guess unless you let it get too far and let it like bring you down if you don't get the desired effect.
I think it ultimately is just the people that pursue like creative careers that require attention or pats on the back. I think that I'm one of those people that's drawn to that because for whatever reason I think it all stems back to your childhood too. I think for whatever reason I just felt like I just did not receive the amount of attention that I needed, and I just did not receive the amount of interest that I needed as a kid. And so I think I'm seeking that out now as an adult and wanting it from a career where I'm receiving some sort of attention and accolades from a massive amount of people for something that I do.
Mm-hmm. But do you think you're talented at what you do, or do you feel like you won't feel like you're talented enough until you get recognition from outside sources?
Yeah, I won't feel fulfilled unless I get recognition from outside sources. I don't feel No, to be honest with you, I really don't feel talented at this point of my life with what I do. And maybe I am, maybe I'm not. I mean, I'm not the person to judge because I'm me, and so I don't think you're the best person to be, doing plastic surgery through the mirror onto yourself because that's never going to end well. But
So in a sense, with that viewpoint, you view talent and recognition are almost one and the same.
yeah, they're synonymous. In my opinion, for what I would want to do, 100%.
You think it'd be easier, not easier, but more fulfilling to know you have one of those pieces down, but you just need the other piece. Like you have the talent, then it's just working towards networking to get the recognition.
Yeah, but it doesn't feel like that to me because the two go hand in hand.
But one comes before the other, right? You have to have the talent before the recognition.
I
Or you
guess.
never get the recognition in the first place.
I guess, but the lag is feeling pretty long. So it feels like the talent is not there. I'm not saying this to be self-deprecating or like fishing for compliments. That's just how my brain operates, and I think.
Or is it not that? Do you think it's not the talent piece, but it's more like finding a way to like vocalize it or network it? Like finding the avenue to get the word out there.
Yeah, that might be part of it, but I mean, right now it just feels like I'm yelling into an empty hole when I'm creating anything, and I just don't feel like anything's taking hold, and so therefore it feels like obviously then the talent must be lacking. And it comes from a place of realism too, because I never want to be that person that is delusional in what they're pursuing, because I think that that's very sad. And so I really like to keep myself honest and humble and aware that this could be futile.
So it's like finding a way to get the voice heard. Someone who can.
Yeah, just finding some foothold to climb the rest of the mountain to. I don't need the biggest audience. I just need a small group of people to value what I do and to tell stories and have people enjoy the stories I tell. Because I want to have people think in a different way. They don't necessarily need to believe what I believe, but my dream would be able to create something and have somebody leave the movie theater or turn off the TV or leave a speech or whatever I end up doing and going, oh, that makes me think in a new way.
So was part of the reason you want to do this podcast to have that?
Oh, 100%. I want people to listen to this and listen to past episodes and new episodes and just think about their lives and what they're doing. And obviously I want to be entertaining and funny and interesting, but yeah, I just have this profound need to tell stories and get thoughts across. And I also think that I look at the world for whatever reason in a very different way than other people do. Not in a better way or worse way or just a different way. And I think that it's not a perspective that, I don't know, it's often portrayed. And so I want to, I don't know, just create a dialogue and tell stories.
Well, this is a great avenue to do it in.
Yeah. And so I feel like even just in the short time, this is probably like I don't want to give a for sure number because I still have to figure out what exactly. I mean, this is probably podcast 7 or 8 now, and it already feels like it's becoming more of a thing and more natural, and the elements are sort of combining better and better. And so, I don't know. You know, when you're doing something and it just feels right, that's how this feels. It feels right. So only time will tell. But I appreciate you coming on and um, always being a reliable guest.
Yeah. Let me know what the next one is.
Yeah, definitely.